I mean, he's a very talented guy. I mean, solid ideas. And what I liked, and I think what he liked about me, is we could work quick together. We could just, and we'd be absolutely not afraid if something had chugged on for a little bit and then we get to a part and we decide we don't like it. No, get rid of it. Okay, cut it. You know what I mean? There's no sacred cows, no ownership of hey, I did this. None of that. It never happened. Jimmy and I would just, everything was like we would do what the song dictated we should do. So if this song was supposed to have a little bit of a funniness to it, obviously the lead vocal in the verses, there's nothing silly about that. That's legit. But the juxtaposition of the silly chorus next to that verse, yeah, that would have been, I mean, it was deliberate. I could hear it. I mean, as soon as I came in there, I haven't heard that song in probably over 20 years. I mean, as soon as it came in, I thought to myself, oh, geez, there's Jimmy and I doing Devo. I mean, that's the first thing that popped into my head. It's just, whip it good. Do, 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 do. I mean, that type of thing, just silly stuff. And the wrestling audiences, they eat it up. They eat it up. They love it when it's all different.
And for those
that's the problem. In fact, that's what I don't like about it now. Again, something it's not a big thing and whatever. And I would never say anything about anybody specifically, but I find that an enormous amount of the music that's being used now for wrestling, a lot of it sounds the same. It's just the same thing, recycled. It's got no originality to it. It's got nothing that has the wrestler's personality or image somehow woven into the music. That was always the thing. It's like, who's the wrestler? Okay, what are they doing now? How do we help bring this together? I don't think they do that anymore.
And I agree with you 1,000%. And you're fast forwarding past another point, but I'll jump to it for a moment because I was going to ask you, given the state of wrestling where it's at, you got AEW now, you have other organizations going with WWE. How the heck has no organization called you and Jimmy's, said, please, on our hands and knees, we need help. Help us with our theme song. Let's bring back what's old, new again. Let's bring originality. How are they not on the phone with you, Howard?
Good question. What the stuff we did after WCW, XWF, we did. I'm trying to think now. There were several things that they tried. Different wrestling companies they tried to get off the ground. I've forgotten some of it now. But we continued working on some things, and then there were some special things like that Jimmy and Hulk might have been doing. I remember different things. There was even some stuff in Europe. There was a British show that I think we did a bunch of music for. Yeah, no, Jimmy, we went out there trying to scare up some music and nobody called. Nobody's, I don't know why. But that's okay.
It's like calling Pavarotti, not calling Pavarotti to come sing at your festival. It's like, why would you not do that? I gotta ask you now. When I first brought to you the concept of our docu-series and mentioned as far as my relationship with Marc and co-hosting this and bringing different segments of his life, you reacted so positively, and one of the first things you said to me, really nice guy. You really enjoyed interacting with him. You said, I know you didn't interact with him much, and Jimmy had recorded him separately at his studio, but for your bits of interactions with Marc, can you talk a little bit about your memories with Marc and how that went?
When I met him was at a show, and that's why it wouldn't have been for that long, because it would have been in a dressing room, somewhere, one of the shows and the rest of it. And it was one of those things where, Jimmy was always back and forth every day, you know what I mean, between the various, the sets and the studio in Tampa. So I didn't have the kind of contact and interaction with the wrestlers. I mean, a lot of times some of the guys would be like, oh, you're the guy that Jimmy works with. You know, it'd be that type of thing. So I remember having a short conversation with Marc, just, you know, long after we produced Buff Daddy, you know, just, oh, you're the guy that works with Jimmy. Okay. You know, it was that type of conversation.
Well, fair enough. And you know, anybody who's interacting with their short time, long time, you know, you read headlines about a person and where their life goes and career goes, but anybody who's actually spent time with them, all have the same thing to say: heart of gold. You know, the guy's a sweetheart, real down to earth. You know, I call him the Southern gentleman, but you know, that's how I was brought up with his family, and that's part of the reason for the series. The real Marc Bagwell is knowing the real Marc Bagwell and the
Right.
people that touch his life. And I got to tell you, my friend, you're here, you had a very big impact on his life and career. Without you and Jimmy, there's no Buff Daddy theme song,
Yeah.
and everything changes from there.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
now I gotta ask you then, your theme songs, I'm sure, are like your children, and you foster them and love them, and each one comes into the earth the way they did. But if you had to say bottom line, your most favorite one that you worked with Jimmy, do you have a favorite?
Oh.
He's got over
Um,
250 of them,
that
so.
might be a hard one. Certainly Buff Daddy would be, oh, Cat's the Greatest. That was the name of that thing. I'm trying to think here.
There's a long list, folks.
Let me just have a quick
No, please.
scan here. Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, they're all, you know, they're different. That's the thing, is these things aren't the same.
And these are over, a lot of them over 20 years since they've been even looked at. It's amazing.
Yep.
Right?
Just looking here. Rap is crap, certainly from a standpoint of being, I don't know if there's, you know, I don't know if there is necessarily a favorite here I can jump on. Without question, I would say that that definitely Buff Daddy would be probably one of the top, let's say, three. You know, as far as things that were there, there were some that, depending on the reaction, I just it's hard to say. Yeah, it was an interesting musical thing working on That Can't Get You Out of My Heart that 3 Count used. That was definitely kind of a Backstreet Boys thing. Those guys, getting them to sing too, that was another interesting that was an interesting challenge. Let's see, what do we got here? No.
If there's one, also, Howard, while you're thinking about this, if there's one that you think, I'd like to take this one back, you know, this one was a bit of a stinker, or wasn't my cup of tea.
Well, there's a couple that for me were just, you know,
All right.
you know, like the debate about Self High Five with DDP. I mean, that one that one was a little tricky to put together. He was really, really adamant about basically, you know, wanting to use the whatever it was, the Nirvana song, and that thing is that it's. I mean, I'm like, dude, you can't do that. He goes, well, that was difficult, and no matter what I tried to change it as much as I could, but if I changed it too much, he would put the brakes on it. The rest of it, that would be an example of one that went out that I kind of went, yeah, I wish, you know, it just kind of, you know, all I was doing was following direction.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Really, I mean, in that case, it was not sort of a collaboration thing. It was like, no, this is what I want, and you know, so that one maybe I would, you know, there's not too much to be proud of there because it's too much to me, like the Nirvana record, you know. It's just, but that I was fighting him through the whole process. So
I agree with you on that one 1,000%. But again, you say that's what they want. It's like somebody putting mustard on their pasta. Okay, if that's what you want, enjoy.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, if they absolutely insist on putting mustard on that pasta, well, okay, don't share it with me.
And
you
the
know,
second, there was a second stinker you said that you were thinking of?
no, not really.
No.
Other than, you know, some of them were really, really, really stupid. Nasty Boys was fun to do. That's a good one. Those guys are characters. Let's see.
Also friends with Hulk Hogan, by the way.
Yeah. No, nothing there I don't like. Let's see. Is there anything here? I don't know. I wasn't crazy about doing Mr. Wonderful. That one's just, that was.
Just there.
That one I really was like, oh shit. Do I really have to?
And every time it got played, the wrestling fans were thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So
I know. That's funny. That's funny. You know, it's the ones that were really popular, you know, were the ones that you could tell the fans loved them.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I said, whenever, you know, Eddie Guerrero's, every time, as soon as that bass line started, boom, 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 the fans would be like, ooh, you know, because the song worked, you know.
And it's
So
ironic that the biggest song was the NWO Wolfpack, which it's not that I wasn't a fan of the theme song. I wasn't a fan of the idea of the NWO Wolfpack. I'm like, why is there
Right.
multiple NWOs? What does red and black mean? Why is there a million people in this? You know, that whole thing, they took this beautiful concept of the NWO, making exclusive black and white, and they just made a million spin-off factions, and they just
Yes.
tore it to shreds and overdid it and destroyed the Golden Goose, and that's what killed me on it. So it's not that I didn't
Yeah.
love the NWO Wolfpack theme song. I really loved that whole NWO new world order.
Did you ever, or do you have a copy of the NWO album?
I do not.
It was only released in Japan.
I'm not surprised.
Yep. I have a copy here somewhere. I think the whole cover's in Japanese. There was another backstory to that was not necessarily good for Jimmy and I either.
No, of course.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
The last theme song or the last memorable theme song that you remember working on with him, do you recall?
Well, at the very, very end, I'm trying to think what the last ones we did were. Oh man.
Again, folks, we're going like 20 plus years ago.
I'm trying to think. You know, and it's funny because I did some stuff, you know, I did some stuff for the Nitro Girls too.
Okay.
And so that was good experience there. I'm trying to think the last ones were, I want to say, I bet you I think there was a Canyon theme that was near the end.
Yep.
Canyon 2001 theme. So that would have been definitely. Son of a Nobody. This would have been one of the last ones we would have done. Because if it was in 2001. I hardly remember this.
God rest his soul, Canyon.
You know, it's a lot of them. I mean, and you know, Jeff Jarrett's theme, that was hilarious. I mean, Jarrett, we actually recorded Jarrett smashing guitars out behind the studio on the patio with mics out there. And it's funny because when you actually smash a guitar and you listen to the sound of a smashing guitar, you kind of go, well, that's not too impressive, is it? It's like, so I forget what we ended up having to do, but we were fighting with that one for a while to try and get the right sound of the, you know, that you could figure out what it was. Because when he smashed the actual guitar, I wasn't impressed with the sound. So
to try to make an impressive sound out of it, he must
try to make an impressive sound.
He must have been quite the character. I mean, he's a wrestling lifer, you know, life of the party, very intelligent guy. You know, very highly spoken of. You know, he keeps reinventing himself, but he must have been quite a treat to spend time.
Yeah, he was in it. We had a lot of fun that day. I remember it was one of those days where we were kind of like, all sort of all over the studio doing stuff. Some days, some guys were just a lot more fun. Whenever Randy Savage came in, it would be the same way. I mean, he'd be sticking his head in all over the studio, and doing things. I remember when he got his new, he bought a new Hummer, and he just got some ridiculous stereo system put in the thing and said, "Hey, you guys gotta come outside and listen to my Hummer." And I remember one day recording Hulk's, his Harley in the parking lot, had microphones in the parking lot, and I got him, revving it up and stuff like that, So that would be the fun thing too, whenever we had some interaction with the wrestlers, it was fun. And then every once in a while, it would just be hey, just do it and put it out. But I feel bad. A lot of the guys, passed away. It's a tough business. I mean, a
It's
lot
a
of these
grind.
guys.
It's like living in the circus. Like you're living out of a suitcase and you're taking all these bumps and bruises. A couple guys, Jeff Jarrett, he had, in WWF at the time, became WWE. He was marketed as a country singer, and we had the honky tonk man as well.
Yes.
His name Wayne something, right? Wayne Ferris, I believe.
That sounds right.
Yeah, but I think he was pre your time. Like I don't think you and the
He was pre my time, although
he was at WCW for a cup of coffee as well.
Yeah.
So, but Jeff Jarrett was not a actual country singer, I take it.
No.
Sorry, guys.
No.
So we've covered this. We've covered the spectrum of wrestling theme songs, your life and career. Howard, got to ask you. So, in the year 2022, the fans want to know, what are you up to? You're still in music. You're actually playing live as well. So tell us what's the life and times of Howard Helm today.
Things are kind of things have slowed down. I put a prog album out in 2017, which I'm actually really quite proud of, as far as just I think it's one of the best things that I've ever put together, because of the genre being in prog and the rest of it. The market for that is really a lot in Europe. Think of things, but it was a really satisfying album for me. I still do a little bit of session work. I'm almost kind of semi-retired. Musicians don't ever really retire, but I mean, I'm not doing anywhere near as much. I have, I'm in my studio here, which is in the basement of my house, and I'm out on the West Coast now, which is a nice, just a change, more than anything. Like I said, I grew up in Toronto, spent 30 years in Florida, so I mean, the East Coast is embedded in me. But now coming out here, and I used to come out here sometimes for vacation in the summer, because my brother lives out here too. He lives up on Vancouver Island. So, it's every once in a while I get a chance, somebody will call and say, do you want to sit in on something? But things have been pretty quiet the last little bit. I'm still working on some, writing some music and doing some sessions for some people in that, but nothing really big that I could tell you. I've had, it's funny, the first Zon album has been re-released twice now in England, once in 2003 and once in 2017, 18, just fairly recently. And so it's funny that comes up too. And it's like, I'm like, that was 40 years ago. My God. It's like, it's hard to remember all those things, but yeah, I'm still just writing music and working on things and, trying to do things. The business these days is very different. The digital thing and the streaming thing and the downloads and all the rest of it. I mean, you've heard every musician on the planet complaining about basically how we're getting ripped off. The guy that owns Spotify is a billionaire. You know what I mean? He's not a musician, but all of his money is money that should be being paid out to the musicians that he's playing that music.
Amen.
But obviously, they've found a way to a loophole in the system. You know what I mean? At least right now, it's really, and that's the thing. You know what I mean? You know, the idea. I can't think of any of my friends right now that are really out doing things, for instance, on tour or anything. You know, so you know, things have quieted down. You know, for me, I'm not dead yet, but you know, I'm slowing down a little bit. You know, and I'll just play locally and stuff like that. You know, if there's a few bands I go and I'll sit in with here, and that's been fun. I had a chance to actually just before I left Florida, there was a couple things that were interesting. There was a band. I don't remember what year it was now, but it wasn't that long ago. Called Voices of Classic Rock, and it was Mike Reno from Loverboy and John Cafferty, Beaver Brown Band, and there's a few other. Who else? The guy from Survivor. Anyways, what it was is they put together the singers from those bands. They had a thing that was touring, and then what they did is they put together a band that basically covered all the music. And so the only celebrity type thing, who they were selling, was just the front people. So that was kind of cool. I mean, especially for a guy from Canada to actually play Loverboy with Mike Reno. And then, and he shit his pants when I told him I was the keyboard player from Zon. He was like, "What?" I said, "Yep." I said, "Do you remember the first time we met?" He started thinking, "Well, man." I said, "Yeah, it was back when you were singing with Moxie."
Small world.
You know, it's a small world, but those things were fun. You know, so those types of things. If people need somebody to sit in and do something or whatever, the meditation music that I've kind of got out there is there's actually a lot of it that I don't have on my website. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other CDs of stuff. But I tell you the reason why they're not out there individually from me. What I created them for was a friend of mine who does a lot of trying to think what the right word is. It's kind of like mental therapy things and stuff like that.
Instructional videos.
And, yeah. So what happens is I've created the music that is in the background of his instructions or his meditations and things like that. He's guiding things through, and I've created all the music that's under it. I just couldn't find a really good reason to release the music by itself. It was like, I thought to myself, if anybody puts this on in the car, they're going to crash their car because they'll fall asleep. I mean, it's just, you know, and so he sells it, but it's got it's all part of courses and stuff like that. So, you know, I'll get people that will call me and ask me to do, you know, stuff like that, which I'm glad to do. And I've done some other things. I've only done, you know, some other TV stuff, some commercial work, you know, as far as just, you know, doing things that end up in the background, you know, but yeah, the exciting days of the WCW and a lot of the stuff I was, you know, doing when I was out live playing around the world before, those days have pretty much ground to a halt.
Well, I gotta ask you, Howard, now because I'm getting excited when you're saying this because I haven't said it publicly yet, but I'm on the verge of releasing a Chosen Lawyer theme song, which was done in the genre of wrestling theme songs, and it's gonna be coming out in the next month or so. And I was hands-on with it, everything from the instrumental to the person's voice. I said, I need more Lemmy, I need more Motorhead sounding, and even at the end of the song, something's missing. I need an evil laugh. We need an evil laugh, you know. And it was a lot of fun for a non-music guy to help produce a music theme song, and it's a blast. And I gotta tell you, you know, I can only imagine as a actual music trained person to be able to do that as part of a living must have been incredible. So I commend you, man. Like, you put a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah,
So thank you.
I'll tell you what, I had enormous fun doing it. It was a real surprise when it kind of dropped itself on my doorstep, but I was very grateful. And man, my friendship with Jimmy Hart, I mean, I can't say enough. I mean, he's a lifelong friend now, you know. I mean, ever since we met back in the early 90s, and just you know, he and I hit it off right away. And I just it's too bad. Last time I saw him, I remember the last time that he's, you know, what he said to me is he said to me, he goes, "Man, we had a hell of a run, didn't we?" And I said, "Yeah, we sure did." I said, it's too bad it stopped, and certainly too bad the way it stopped, you know. And both of us were very disappointed about that, but you know, it's all right. We just we keep motoring on. And like I said, I just love that guy. He's so much fun to create stuff with. And I'm surprised that somebody hasn't reached out. I, like you said, from one of these other wrestling companies or something. And just another thing we did after the well, that got messed up in the WWE thing. I was going to talk about the video game, the Acclaim game that was out. That Jimmy and I did all the music that's on the Acclaim game, and that's why. And that was kind of an odd thing, because in some cases they couldn't use, like, if it was had some of the older guys in it. That's what we were talking about, honky tonk and things like that. There was a few of the older guys who there was some stuff we had to create for them to use. So in an, you know what I mean, in sort of an off way, I've done some stuff for some of the older guys, but not something that the fans, you know, would ever really have. And then and it was really funny. You know, another thing we did too. This is, I mean, it's not hilarious. It's weird. It's weird, and you'll appreciate weird. Jimmy and I wrote all these themes for the monster trucks. All the monster trucks, Gravedigger, the thing is that there's a whole thing we wrote for that whole thing.
Huh?
And it was the vice president of well, I guess whatever the monster truck thing is, whatever it was, he was the guy that came to us and did it. We got the whole thing finished. They were getting ready to put something out. The guy passed away from the monster trucks. So the whole project just got shelved. It just got put someplace. And so it never came out. And I mean, you know, all the big names. Jimmy and I got covered in friggin' mud. We recorded the sounds of the monster trucks at the stadium in Tampa. We were down at the field with the mics and the rest of it, and as the trucks were doing their warm up things and the rest of them, and you know, and they were told, you know, to, hey, do a run going past here. There's guys who were recording the sound effects for this. The drivers said, yeah, sure. And we were absolutely from head to toe covered in mud and dirt recording that. I mean, it was just like, it was ridiculous. But we had it because I was going to put it on the I don't even think I've got it here. If I could show you something that, no, I don't even think I've got it.
It makes perfect sense though. What's the perfect segue from wrestling theme songs? Monster trucks. So
well, that's the whole thing. So if Gravedigger's coming out, or Bulldozer's coming, you know, or whatever the various things, you know, were, I'll have to go and look for that stuff. But yeah, it was the weirdest thing in the world. It's like the whole thing game. The guy paid us. We produced all the themes. We had the whole, you know, a whole, like, what, 15 song thing or whatever together that could have been sold to by the monster truck people. And like I said, the guy in charge of the whole production, he passes away out of nowhere. I don't know if he had a heart attack or what it was. He just was like, he was gone. And with him being gone, I guess everything that was under his umbrella was gone too. You know, it was just weird. It's just, it literally just all of a sudden just was gone. So I'll have to dig through that and see.
Yes, if you do
If I can
locate
find.
it, let me know because that's incredible. I'd love to hear the
I
Gravedigger
mean, it's
one.
just bizarre. Jimmy and
Yeah,
I tried so many things. I mean, uh, we produced some demos with Hulk's daughter, Brooke.
yeah.
Um, I played. There was a thing that she did for the guy who used to manage the Backstreet Boys. It was
Oh
up in
yes,
Orlando.
Perlman.
Perlman. That's right. It was for Perlman.
Yeah,
And he
Blue
anyways, he
Perlman.
came down and they put this showcase thing together, and we did a thing, part of it recorded and part of it also was sort of happening live. I don't remember how this all went, but I remember it was like, well, they're organizing this little showcase, how they're going to do it, bring Perma and his people in, they're sitting, and we're in this place, I think it was somewhere on the Universal set, and so I came in. It was really funny, and Hulk says, you know well, let's have Howard bring Brooke out. And I'm kind of like, me? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, I don't have any. Well, Brooke's really tall. She's like 6 feet tall, and you're over 6 feet tall. It's like, otherwise I don't want some guy walking her out. We're like, she looks like she's on Amazon. So I walked Brooke out of this thing, and we produced a couple things for it. I don't think anything ever really happened with it, but we were writing some songs for her and stuff like that. So that's what Jimmy and I have tried to come up with a few things. And like I said, boy, after WCW was gone, there was a bunch of things that got tried wrestling wise, but none of them really seemed to work.
Howard, I gotta tell you, man, when I brought up your name, Jimmy's eyes lit up. He didn't even want to talk about any of the wrestling stuff. He only wanted to talk about you. He asked me 10
Uh,
times. He says, tell him to call me. Tell him to call me. I need to
all
talk to
right,
Howard. I need Howard. So make sure you jump on the horn. Jimmy misses you.
I will get on the horn to him.
Jimmy has a bunch of stuff to go over with you, which is amazing. And
Yeah,
it's so nice to see such a talented team. You guys produce beautiful art for the world. And it still lives
yeah,
on. And that you guys kept that connection. So I love it. But
yeah,
last question, because I mean, the truth of the matter is, like a lot of life, if we all think about, myself, yourself, other people watching this right now, no matter what you're doing in your life, as far as your partner or your job, think about how something connected and you're just in the right place at the right time. And
oh
that's how it
yeah,
came to be. You being in that studio, Jimmy having to be in the studio. Otherwise,
yeah,
who knows? You guys had never met. What Jimmy would have done, you would have done.
yeah.
It's
He
incredible.
probably would have, yeah, continued. Yeah, it would have been. You're absolutely right. It was one of those things that was meant to happen,
Yep.
and it's really funny because with it being so long ago, it's like uh, my kids, like my sons. I have a picture from back at what the heck was it they tried to do in Orlando, TNA wrestling.
Yes.
Um,
Which is now Impact
and
Wrestling.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, Mike, my kids, Jimmy would do all kinds of things with my boys. I mean, we would bring them to the shows, and they'd have passes and all the rest of it. So obviously they're older now, and they're in their later 20s now. And the wrestling thing will still come up because, like, with the hockey playoffs that just happened, the Tampa Bay Lightning being almost able to pull it off again, um, it was really funny. My older son, he was at all the games there, and he'd text me, go, Dad, Hulk's here, and he'd be like, it's like he's at such and such, and then he text me, like the next game, oh, the Nature Boy just walked past me. I mean, my kids are, you know what I mean, are clued into the wrestling thing because of Jimmy. You know what I mean? Jimmy just made, you know, and I have a great picture when the kids were little, the boys with Jimmy, and there's a ring behind them, and that is one of my favorite pictures. I will treasure that forever because, like I said, he's been a good friend and he's been a good partner, and I do truly wish that it hadn't ended the way it did. But you're right. What do you do? I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's coming out about Vince right now. I mean, there's a certain type of person that he is, and obviously people who get caught in the wake of whatever he's doing, he doesn't seem to care about.
He just retired conveniently. Also, now he's like, oh, I paid a bunch. Oh, I'm retiring. You know what? I'm done now. So,
Yeah,
anyways, there's a way of doing it gracefully, I guess. But the story you're saying is not far off from what Marc Bagwell talks about, because here WCW's gone. A few guys didn't choose the payouts, to keep getting paid. They wanted to keep wrestling. Here, Mark comes on Buff Daddies on WWF TV. They bring him on the first time on the main event, the last match of the evening with Booker T. Did
right.
not bring him on the next week in Atlanta, which he always talks about, which would have made perfect sense because of the WCW connection. To bring Marc Bagwell into Atlanta would have been the perfect storm.
Yeah,
But they brought him on the week before. Was not a bad match. I go back and watch it. They talk about it as one of the worst matches ever. It wasn't, but the crowd was not receptive because the crowd was so anti-WCW. And then conveniently, Marc Bagwell is gone the next week or so, and there you have it, where they had a talent in the prime of their career, but because they're a lifer WCW guy, you know what? We're gonna pick and choose. Even Sting. Sting was like a classic
yeah,
example. Was an icon. They finally bring him on, destroy him. They make him lose to Triple H. He conveniently gets injured. Just terrible programming, terrible use. And that's one of the things, my biggest beefs with wrestling and WWE. You're taking very talented people and talented gimmicks and themes, and let's destroy them as quickly as we can. Let's take all the air out of the sails. And you had something really good and precious that's been built up. Why not write it?
yeah,
Why not make better use of it? And I hope AEW is listening to this and get you and Jimmy on the horn and saying, guys, let's get some wrestling theme songs going. Because, yes, I agree with
yeah,
you. You got the guys, they have the look, but without those great theme songs, they're not the same.
yeah, yeah. One of the last is surprising, actually, because he's I'm trying to think what it was. One of the last people I did a theme with was John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the last guys that I worked with in the studio on something wrestling related.
But
It was a while ago now.
But it wasn't
but
basic thugonomics, was it?
No, I don't remember. Honestly, don't remember
Yes.
what it was. The only reason it pops into my head is because I happened to come across a file the other day in my studio files that had John Cena's name on. I go, oh yeah, so, I remember doing something with Sable too. It's all a blur. It's all a blur. I mean, the great guys, you remember them,
Yeah.
and then, but anyway,
Incredible.
well, hopefully I've answered some of your questions.
Howard, I gotta tell you, man, you have gone above and beyond. It was a 1 hour scheduled taping. We went into hour number 2 because there was this much information. I think, again, as a wrestling historian and lover, and in creating and making the Marc Bagwell series and understanding the background of it, part of the issue is, and Mark and I have talked about this, a lot of the stuff that you guys were doing in the peak, it was not in the social media era. It was not in the era of people with smartphones and everything else. So there's so much of this information missing. Like, just being able, you should have a video out, a DVD of recording of all these theme songs and the background stories of it. And this is the stuff wrestling fans eat up. So I'm really glad we were able to make wrestling history today, bring this information that people love to hear.
No, it's very, very cool. I enjoyed so much the time, and it's too bad that some of the things ended up the way they did. But you know what? I certainly, Jimmy and I we were just part of a huge, sweeping of things off the table.
Well, I'm gonna ask you to stay on for a minute afterwards when we stop the recording, but I'm gonna take this opportunity now to say thank you again. Honestly, you've been a great part of the docuseries. The fans, I heavily encourage you to hit the subscribe button, send your questions. We'll forward them to Howard. You never know what will appear back. And it was really great of you to take the time today for Marc Bagwell, for the wrestling fans, for the community.
No problem.
And it's been an ultra pleasure, my friend.
Excellent. Nice to have met you too, Jonathan, for sure.
Okay, a pleasure. Hold on for a minute and we'll say goodbye. Thank you.